Welcome back to another electrifying episode of the Show. We are two geeks who talk about everything. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Landon.
Good day.
How are we doing?
Great. I'm home.
That's good.
I was traveling, and so thus our delay.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about The Flash during the opening weekend, so we're talking about it in its second weekend. Today we have a turbocharged episode lined up for you, so brace yourselves. We're about to zoom because we're on Zoom into the world of speedsters and multiverses and alternate timelines as we discuss the latest box office bomb from Warner Brothers and DC Comics, The Flash. Now, me calling it a box office bomb is not a representation of my opinion of this movie. It is a fact that this movie has been a disappointment at the box office in its first 2 weeks. And it would
From
take
a money
miracle.
standpoint?
Oh my gosh, yes.
I don't know.
It didn't even Black Adam had a bigger opening weekend than The Flash. What does that tell you? So yeah, if you have not seen this yet, be warned, spoilers lie ahead. We're not even gonna play around with a non-spoiler thing from the beginning. This is going to be a spoiler-filled episode where we talk about The Flash and all of the ins and outs of the movie. And so if you have not seen it yet, hit pause, jump onto your cosmic treadmill, and go back in time and see it during that opening weekend so it can make a little more money. So, all right. Are you ready to head into the Speed Force?
Uh-huh.
All right. Now, let's
hold on before we do. I just want to say to anybody listening in, at this point, we have not previously talked, Aaron and I, and so he does not know my feelings about the movie, and I don't know his feelings about the movie. So
yeah, no, this is our first actual discussion.
So these are genuine reactions by me as to his, upcoming discipline.
Okay, well, let me ask you, what's your overall take on The Flash before we get into the specifics of plot and story, acting, cameos?
Like a general feel for the movie I saw?
Yeah.
So I was I mean there were definitely pluses and minuses for me, but I liked seeing Michael Keaton, and I thought it was fun for me. I don't particularly care for Ezra Miller, but I thought he did a pretty good job. I don't know. It felt more like a I could see how some people might not enjoy it from a plot perspective, because it felt like a CW episode, like when it came to like the plot stuff. But like there were parts of it for me, just like, again, it was seeing Michael Keaton and seeing the cool things that happened with that version of Batman and the Batwing and the things he did. Those were all like really fun for me. So I didn't go into this movie, my expectations were super low. And so I guess I was like, I got what I wanted out of it. So what about you?
Okay, so I went into it and my expectations were super high.
Really?
And it's because of all the hype that's been surrounding it for so long.
Yeah.
It's because of things that the high praise that came from people like James Gunn,
right,
who is now over the entire DCU, calling it one of the best superhero movies he'd ever seen. I've got high hopes going into this thing, because this is the guy who gave us the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. He gave us the Suicide Squad, and these are all excellent movies and really well done. And so I'm thinking, well, if he liked The Flash, then I'm sure gonna like it.
Right.
And it's not that I didn't like it. I did. I enjoyed it. I was entertained. But overall, I was disappointed. And I think it's just because I went into it with such high expectations.
Right.
I'm on the same page as you. My favorite part of the movie absolutely was Michael Keaton as Batman. Seeing him back in the cape and cowl was fantastic. Um, I just because that's I mean that's the Batman that I knew as a kid. So this is do I think he's the best Batman? I don't know. But I really, really enjoyed him and the character he played. Um yeah. So overall, like I said, I enjoyed it. I had a good time as a long time DC Comics fan. Uh this was a movie made for people like me. Because knowing the ins and outs of who the Flash is, what his character is like, what the Flashpoint event comic book storyline
Right.
was like,
Right.
understanding how time travel works in the DC universe, what multiple timelines look like, what the infinite multiverse looks like. All of those aspects, yes, I enjoyed it. But there were a lot of drawbacks, some of which I understand as a moviegoer. I get it, and I get why there were those drawbacks, and we'll get to those when we start speaking on specifics of the making of the movie. But just for now, I'll say it was good, but I was disappointed.
Yeah, maybe what we should do is go through, unless you have an agenda, I like we could go through and talk about different aspects of it, characters, plot, and continuity,
I
the
actually do have a
pace.
list.
Oh, you
With
do? Okay, great.
Yes, starting with plot because I didn't, like I said, I don't want to go into this trying to avoid spoilers. Uh, I thought, let's just get into it. The
Yep.
the plot is very heavy. There's a lot going on. And it can be confusing when you involve time travel. Um, and that should be no surprise to anyone out there who has seen a trailer for it, because
Right.
that's the crux of when Barry's meeting with Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne. He's saying, I can go back, I can change things. And anyone who saw the Snyder cut of Justice League knows that that's how they won in the end. Was they lost initially, but Flash went back by like 1 or 2 seconds and made one little change, and then they won.
Right.
Right. So so he's realizing that with his speed and with the power that he has, he can go back in time, he can change things, he can save his mom, who was murdered when he was a kid, and his father was wrongly convicted of that murder.
Right.
um and he's claiming, I could save your parents, Bruce. And Bruce is, Ben Affleck's Bruce is very wise, in this moment, telling him that sure, you could fix things or you could destroy everything.
Right. And the part about it's made us who we are. You know what I mean? The things in the
Right.
past. I mean, for Batman, who has become, everything Batman is started by trying to fight against the forces that caused his parents to die. You know, it's like, I don't know, it does show a wise Batman at this stage of the game to be able to say that.
Yeah,
Um,
you think about that, like if Bruce Wayne's parents had never been killed in that alley, Bruce Wayne would have grown up to be a spoiled rich kid, and
might have
never
been a
would
nice
have
guy.
do what.
He might have been a nice guy. He
Well,
could
yeah,
have been a philanthropist like his father.
maybe, but he wouldn't have been raised by his, like he was raised by his father,
Um,
but like if he would have, the Bruce Wayne we know was raised by Alfred Pennyworth. And
right.
so
Who
you
happened
know
to, be a former military officer. So.
right, former
Um,
MI6.
so as far as like the plot goes and the pace, I will say like the beginning of the movie for me was I liked how I got a little bit more invested in Ezra Miller's Flash just by showing him and his tearful moment. That was helpful. The part at the beginning with saving the babies and the dog, at first I was like, what? And then I thought it was okay. But the whole point of it I thought was okay. I mean, the movie felt slow at the beginning to me. But I was there for the long haul and I was like, oh, it's coming. I'm just waiting for it. I didn't know there were going to be two Flashes. I didn't know, and I saw from the preview that there were two characters, and I thought there'd be a multiverse. I didn't anticipate that it would be a Flash who did not have his powers, and then he gets his powers, and then he doesn't have his powers while he has his powers, and all of this is just like, okay, it's kind of a roller coaster, if you will, of things happening. Then you throw in the whole part about Zod and Kal-El, um and it was interesting. It just wasn't I don't know, it was almost like one of those things you watch, you go, okay, well, there you go. But I feel like we've done so much. When we watched Man of Steel, which was a great movie, do you really liked Man of Steel too, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so Man of Steel was a great movie. So then you go and you have Batman versus Superman, and you get a little bit of Bruce Wayne by going back to that event, right? That when the city's getting destroyed and Bruce Wayne sees it happening, he thinks Kal-El is, the Kryptonians responsible. He's doesn't like Superman at that moment, right? And so we got that again. To go back a third time and involve that same plot point about that happening then, I thought was just, you know, it just didn't require very much work. You know, is that
Yeah.
it? Did you agree? I mean, there could we have not done anything else besides hitting up that aspect right there?
Yeah, revisiting, I again, I get it. I get bringing in Zod so that you can introduce Supergirl in this alternate timeline, this alternate reality. Um but to once again revisit Metropolis's destruction is like beating a dead horse
Oh, it
that's
was.
already been beaten over and
Oh,
over again.
oh, it
And
was so true.
um I don't know. I with it being you've got this idea that the Flash and this Flashpoint event, is going to reset the DCU, right? And
It's
and
same old, same old.
fix the things that were wrong. It's like, well, they've tried to do that in the comics over and over again, where every time there's this reality bending event, Crisis on Infinite Earths, 0 hour, Flashpoint,
Dawn of the DC.
it always like their intention is to fix what's wrong. Like when they did Crisis on Infinite Earths, it was like, all right, the multiverse is too convoluted. It's too confusing for new readers to come in and understand what's going on. So let's just get rid of the multiverse. It's just one universe in DC Comics. It's just one Earth. None of this Earth 2, Earth 5, Earth 10 crap. This is the only one. Okay, fine. But then they still had comics that were ongoing from before the crisis,
Right.
and it's like, well, how do these characters fit in? There's like 8 different versions of Hawkman. How do you explain that? And it's just like,
Yeah.
none of it makes sense. And so here they're trying to do the same thing with their cinematic universe, knowing that they are getting ready to basically reboot the whole thing anyway. So you've got James Gunn saying, all right, so the Flash movie basically hits reset on the DC universe moving forward, but we're not actually going to use anything that's going on in the Flash or Aquaman. The only thing he's confirmed is that Blue Beetle will be a character like I assume the actor playing Blue Beetle will be Blue Beetle in the new DCU, but the
Miguel.
first movie in DCU is going to be Superman Legacy.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
what's
It's
the
a bit
point?
confusing. Yeah. You know, there's aspects of this movie. I think about like Spider-Man No Way Home, and how bringing together Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, and how that was handled, and how they connected in those moving moments. And there were things like the part with Andrew Garfield where he catches Zendaya, and you just cry. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I cried,
Oh, absolutely.
because that was an unfinished thing from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. And so there's more that could have been done here. Or I guess I wish they just have to have the Marvel-esque way of handling some of these things. It could have been better, but so I feel you. I guess as we talk about this, I'm flushed out to recognize and validate everything you're saying. The Michael Keaton aspect, and maybe it's because I'd taken my daughter to a theme park, and we went and saw the movie, and my wife and son went and saw the movie while we back at home, and we all just kind of were like, oh, it was amazing, because we had this feeling of nostalgia, and we walked into it just having fun.
Sure.
Evaluating it and recommending it for someone probably comes a little different, though. um, if you want to go see a movie where you get to see Michael Keaton be Batman again and him do an incredible job, and everything about his character, plot, and storyline, and everything like that was awesome, go see The Flash. If you want to see another DC movie that's going to, repair your thoughts about DC movies, don't go see The Flash.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, for people like us who grew up reading these comics and have that built-in fandom, this is a movie that was made for us. But was it made for your average moviegoer who has, very little knowledge of who the Flash is or who Supergirl is? Or was this a movie for somebody who saw Batman and Batman Returns back in the early 90s and then comes back and says, oh, Michael Keaton's playing Batman, I need to see this movie? But
Yeah.
they don't have any clue what's going on otherwise.
Yeah. I don't know that you
So
have to. You just be like I was, you just go and you're just like, oh, there he is. You know what I mean? You're finally like, oh, right. Yeah, there we go.
I will
Yeah.
say I did like Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne when he was explaining the differing timelines and
That
the
was great.
multiverse, his explanation of it using the spaghetti, I thought was fantastic, and they really were throwing shade at Avengers Endgame
Yeah.
and their idea of time travel and changing the past, and and so I thought that was funny, and I really the way that he explained the multiverse being a bowl of spaghetti where you've got certain things that are going to touch and be similar, but they're all they're all different, and a beginning here could be different than that beginning, or they could be similar, and then oh man,
But the
it
way
was
that he
great.
explained his delivery of it's hilarious too, because it's the Michael Keaton way of explaining things, which I could just listen to all the time. Um, there's there's a part when he first comes in, the hairy beard thing. I'm like, all right, whatever. Um, but like for him to go in there and have the two flashes, and he is totally like dominating and kicking Ezra Miller's butt. The original Flash,
Yeah.
and then the one who has powers, of course, is missing him entirely because of speed. But I just thought it was a really cool scene because it equally showed off uh, his ability to fight and still handle things. And it also showed his failure against keeping up with the man of speed. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Um, that's so good. Okay, so I've seen Michael Shannon comment. By the way, offshoot, did you know that Michael Shannon was in Groundhog Day?
Yeah.
I had no idea. I let my daughter see it for the first time on our little trip, and I see him as the groom, and I'm like, that's not. And I
Yep.
go and look it up, and sure enough, that was a young Michael Shannon. Isn't that crazy?
Yep. That's who it is.
So he has come out and he has mentioned how, he didn't feel like his role was very meaningful. And he's right. I
It
mean,
wasn't.
it
He
wasn't.
was a prop. He
He
was
was a
he was
prop.
not there as a character. He was not there as to grow the character of Zod. He was a plot point.
Right.
and nothing else. There was no other reason for him to be there other than we have to find Superman, um, because he's the only one who can stop Zod.
Right.
And I mean, so you know, the when it comes down to the story overall, I do think as much action as we got in the third act, I think the third act was its weakest point, because you really you don't have a lot of story development happening anymore at this point. It's
No.
just like, all right, we've reached the point where we're gonna have this big action sequence, and you still have what's going on between Barry and Barry, sure, but
Right.
that is like, even that is weak compared to what we've had from the first two acts of it, learning, why Barry is
Right.
doing what he's doing, and the struggle he has and always has had with not having his mother in his life.
Right.
um
Well, do you remember how we watched Wakanda Forever and we talked about how that movie was a movie about grief and it was about processing grief and moving on, right?
right.
Um, and that was moving. It was a moving movie, for that purpose. This movie attempted to have an overarching plot about accepting and moving on and grief. And it didn't achieve that. It didn't achieve that very well at all.
No.
Um, because even, using the lines and the terminology and all the catchphrases, still in the end, you're just like, I wait, so I'm just gonna have to deal with Michael Keaton and Sasha, and I've got to deal with Batman and Supergirl dying. I just gotta deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, some things are just, you have to accept it, and we had to accept that within 5 minutes of them trying to go back and change it,
Oh.
because some things are just meant to happen.
Now, how did you feel about the CGI face that stuff in the movies? Because I've heard two different opinions on it that I've read.
Okay, I put this as a separate category way down the list because all right, let's go there. Let's go there. All right. The CGI was terrible. I thought, okay, here's what I think. First of all, about the visual effects involving the Flash and his running. Okay. The CW did that much better in the first couple of seasons of the Flash TV show than they did in this movie. I don't know, maybe it's just personal preference, but to have the Flash himself running in slow motion while the world is zooming by around him, that makes no sense to me. He is moving fast. That's why he's fast. He's not in slow motion just being carried forward by the speed force. He is super fast because he's tapping into the speed force and the world is zooming by around him. If you want to do it in slow motion, that's fine, but have him move at regular speed while the world is slow around him.
Right.
That makes sense. So I was not impressed with the CGI of the Flash running. When it came to the CGI in the
Flashpoint.
Chrono Bowl,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
when they were, because obviously you're seeing multiple versions of everybody, and so it's got to be CGI. That when they're doing people, like showing people's faces, especially, nobody looked right at
No, it
all.
didn't.
Because all right, so here's what I understand about visual effects in Hollywood these days. Studios are looking to spend as little money as possible, right? And so they have these jobs for visual effects companies and studios out there, and they give them to the lowest possible bidder. And so they're only paying, so let's say you've got one visual effects, let's say Industrial Light and Magic, all right? They're like the top tier.
Yeah.
Say, all right, we'll do your Flash movie and all your visual effects for I don't know, give us $150 million. We'll do it. Warner Brothers is like, I don't know, that's a little steep. Um, and so you get a company that, sure, they might be good at doing visual effects, but they're not getting paid top tier kind of money. Maybe they're getting $25 million to do this whole thing, and so it's not like they've got the money to pay people to do the visual effects the way that they need to be done. For
Or that
whatever
have the
reason,
skill, or that have the skill level at that place to be
right?
able to accomplish.
Right, because you think about the what it takes to put these CGI visual effects in these things. You're talking about the and maybe I'm understanding it wrong, but in my mind, I'm picturing you got to frame one frame of the film, right? And you're looking at it, and it's like you've got to do whatever you do in Photoshop, right? As if you're altering a picture. And then you've got to do that to every frame. And we're talking about, like, what's the frame rate in movies these days? Like 80 frames per second. And that's in a 2-hour movie. I mean, how much work, how many man hours go into altering each of these frames to make them look good? And so, like,
Right.
it's understandable that some of this is not working out because, again, we're talking about studios who don't want to spend the money on it and who have this impression that just because it's a blockbuster movie, it's going to make money. So we don't actually have to put a whole lot of money into the CGI. People are going to come see the movie anyway.
Well, another thing too is, when Rogue One came out, and at the very end of the movie, you got to see Leia. Now we all kind of dealt with the Grand Moff Tarkin a little bit, right? And it was kind of honoring and fun, but at the end you have to, you know I guess, handle how Leia looked, and because it had not been done to that level of skill as of yet, other than in video games, right? It was impressive and honoring, if anything, you know. But you get away with that once,
Right.
right? After that, now we're all like, yeah, and when you see the Mandalorian and you see Luke Skywalker in that, did it still look a little plastic, a little shiny? Yes, but it still was an improvement from even what Leia was in Rogue One.
And then what they
So
did in season 3, or not season 3, but in Book of Boba Fett with Luke Skywalker there,
right,
again, it
again,
was
an
leaps and bounds
improvement,
better than it
right?
had been at
So
the end
I
of
think
season 2.
I think that illustrates what you're saying the best here is we know because we've seen in these movies what can be done, and we're past it now where we can no longer really tolerate uh, what was before. It looks cheaper. Now, are we
Right.
spoiled? Sure.
Of
We're spoiled.
course.
But again, we're not the ones who decided to undertake making an incredible CGI movie, to this level and then lauded as being freaking incredible.
But see, and that's the thing. If studios want moviegoers to be impressed with their movies, you have to invest the right amount of money into it to make it look good. You can't just half-ass it and expect everyone to be like, "Oh, that's the greatest movie I've ever seen."
Yeah.
I mean, forget about the CGI stuff. That's not important. It is
Let's
important. It
let's
has to
talk
look
for
good.
let's talk for a second about the pomp and circumstance about this movie. Because I think at this point, other than the Batman thing, I got what I wanted, but the talk about this movie was pretty crazy. How much it was lauded. I mean, incredibly crazy how much it was lauded as being an awesome movie. You know
Incredibly overhyped. I mean,
why?
we already
How?
said James Gunn.
But why would he do
Him
it?
saying it.
He's the last person I would expect to be a sellout.
But then you also had
He did just get
the
the
other two
job.
big names that I remember people coming out and saying stuff that was good about this movie was Tom Cruise and Stephen King. Both of them had
And,
nothing but high praise
and
for this
Stephen
movie.
King would never. He is definitely not a sellout. So help me understand. Help me understand how it comes to be. What Kevin Smith is a defender of the CGI. And help me, because these are people who have been unashamedly critical um of other things, right?
Well, okay, so when it comes to defending the CGI, I'm gonna I think I'm gonna understand a little bit better if somebody from Hollywood is defending the CGI, because I will say, like, the work that goes into these things is has got to be incredible, even though it turns out the way it did. Again, I'm saying if they had invested the kind of money they needed to, they could have actually had a crew of CGI effects artists doing this properly and being able to spend the kind of time they needed to spend on it, rather than feeling like it was a rush job because we've only got so much money to play with.
Or for that matter, we know that there were multiple rewrites and stuff with this movie that's been, talked about for a long time. It could be that, there's stuff that's left on the floor and you come to the 11th hour and it was a rush job, for
Yeah.
the final plot. You never know.
So, um, yeah, I don't know. Like, as far as it being overhyped, that's just, I mean, that's Hollywood being Hollywood, as far as I'm concerned.
I think if someone other, you think about the Michael Keaton aspect, but then you had an honoring moment for Christopher Reeve. You had an honoring moment for the original Supergirl. You had, funnily enough, Nicolas Cage. I never expected that.
See,
I
that was one of
never.
those things that leaked. I was disappointed that I knew about it going into it.
Oh, you saw that? Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know.
I had seen that they were that was a cameo that was uh I don't know. They kept saying it was years in the making, and it was like it was impossible not to guess that it was Nicolas Cage because they kept hinting around the Superman movie that was never made. I was like, oh my gosh, seriously?
Did we get a Did we get an Adam West?
Yes, Adam West showed up. You
Okay,
had Cesar Romero's Joker. You
that's
had
right.
Jack Nicholson's Joker. Um,
The little bag
George
thing
Reeves
was
Superman.
hilarious, by the way. The George Reeves, yeah, I saw that part. The little green bag of the laughing when
Oh
Ezra
yeah,
Miller thought he's got a bag that laughs, and I was like, oh man,
yeah, that was a
that's
good callback. Um, yeah, so that's, I mean, that's where the CGI again, I feel like fell short. It was a great idea. All right, I really liked I mean, there's a lot of fan service, of course.
yeah.
But in execution, it did not turn out great. Did I love seeing Christopher Reeve and Helen Slater next to each other as Superman and
Yeah,
Supergirl?
yeah,
Yes, that was fantastic. Did it
yeah.
look realistic? Not even a little bit.
Not in
It
no.
was like watching a PlayStation 2 cutscene. Um,
Well, even the Nick Cage was not realistic.
no, that was more like a PlayStation 3 cutscene. Um,
A video game. It was
but
like
what
a
was great about that though was that he was fighting a giant spider.
video. Yeah.
And if you go back and you look at the history of Superman Lives or Superman Reborn, whatever they were going to call it, that was one of the things. Like one of the producers, John Peters, he was insistent that Superman fight a giant spider, but they were like, "Don't call it a spider." They were going to call it a Thanagarian snare beast, but it was a giant spider, and
Oh man.
like Kevin Smith, I remember hearing an interview he did. He was making fun of the whole thing because he was a writer on the project for a while, and when the movie never got made, he said, but John Peters, he got his giant spider because later he produced Wild Wild West, which had a giant mechanical spider.
Mechanical spider. The guy likes spiders.
He likes they're horrible beasts that take out the animal kingdom. They're scary, man.
Oh man. So the whole montage or whatever it was. I mean, it was honoring, but you're right. I mean, visually it fell short.
It just
I
didn't stick the landing on it.
no Christian Bale.
No, they didn't. That would have been good to pull out the Christian Bale Batman and Heath Ledger's Joker.
Just
Even
couldn't get that.
even Robert Pattinson's Joker, have that show up in one of those Chrono Bowl things.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It was so let's shift into to some of our bigger parts, the actors that were in it. I'm gonna say the actor, and I just want you to give me one word to describe how you felt about their performance. Ezra Miller.
Redeeming.
Ooh, I
I
was
had a
gonna go with
very
obnoxious.
I actually I got more out of him in this movie than any other movie that I've seen him in, and I loved how he was almost making fun of himself. You know what I mean? Just I thought it was fun.
um,
All right.
I so personally, I just don't like the way he plays Barry, because to me that's not the characterization of Barry Allen. That's more of a Wally West.
Oh yeah.
The his kind of half-hearted, silly, joking. Like when he was playing
Yeah.
Barry seriously, it was good.
Right.
But when he was like the younger Barry was obnoxious, and when he was not being serious about what he was thinking about and doing, it just didn't. It just fell flat for me. Okay,
Right.
moving on. Michael Keaton,
Stellar.
outstanding.
Stellar. Oh man, what a just incredible. Yeah. All right.
All right, Sasha Kaye as Kara or Supergirl.
Forgettable.
Really, I actually thought she did a pretty good job. I don't think they gave her enough to
They
do.
didn't give her enough to do. She should.
Yeah,
It's
she
not her
was.
fault. It's just there weren't hardly any lines.
she was. She
They found her.
was.
She got mad. She attacked things.
I did so. I did really like that part of the movie, the story, where when they found her in that silo, and because I don't know. Did you ever read the Flashpoint story?
Once. Yeah, I think so.
So that was the story of Superman. Like he was
Right.
found by the government and
Right.
kept in this laboratory and was this emaciated, just gaunt figure who didn't have any powers because he'd never been exposed to the radiation of the yellow
Right.
sun. And so I thought that was really well done, putting her in those shoes, and then having her, suddenly get powered up and being
Yeah.
able to do the things she
She
can
she
do.
kicked some butt. She did.
She did.
Of
She did a
course,
great job.
I did have I did have to check myself and ask, this isn't the same set from The Boys when Jensen Ackles came, and they found Soldier Boy, is it? Because
I thought it looked a lot like the one from Black Widow when they were breaking what's his name out of prison.
yeah, they all use the same place.
Yeah, it's all the same thing. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think she did a good job with what she had. I don't think that they gave her enough to do. She
They
was
didn't.
she was barely more of a plot device than Zod was.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I'd like to see her in other things. I'd like to see her as a Supergirl and actually have a movie where I can flush that out. Absolutely,
and see,
but
they are like that's part of the plan for this first chapter of the DCU. There's a Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is the movie that's coming, and I wouldn't hate it if they cast her to give
no,
her a chance to play the role because I think
no,
I think she could do a good job with it.
she's passionate. We know that much. Don't know
Yeah.
much else, but that's it.
All right, Ben Affleck as the other Bruce Wayne slash Batman.
Uh, you know, um, one word. Um,
I actually don't have one word for this one. I
I
was
would just say, it's a fitting end, for
Yeah.
him. I thought to myself that part at the beginning where he gives that advice and he's cool and calm about it. I thought the action scene at the beginning, which obviously was probably more CGI than anything, but I just thought his little moment with Barry there was good. That's good. Bye-bye.
Yeah. No, I think he did a good job. All right. Well, that's all the big ones. I mean, we could say Michael Shannon, but we've already talked about him.
We did already
Um,
talk about him, yeah. Oh, what
and
about do
we've
you want to talk about the ending?
oh yeah, oh okay. George Clooney as Bruce Wayne.
Disappointed. Disappointed.
Yeah. I was like,
Let
where
me
did
tell
that
you,
come from?
disappointed. I'm just like it should have been Michael Keaton. That's who it should have been.
And all right, how about
Oh,
the end credit scene with Barry and Aquaman? Was that all right? To me, that felt almost about as pointless as an end credit scene can get
yeah.
because it didn't set anything up. It didn't
No,
tie any loose ends up. It was just tacked on for
for
what?
what?
For
No.
I just that
It
didn't
was
do anything at all.
irritating. If anything, it was irritating because, it wasn't even like a mid credits. I mean, I had to wait the entire time for that,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. We waited
I've
through
got a
the entire
10-year-old.
credits.
You know what I mean? I've got a 14-year-old. I mean, like I said, we didn't watch the movie all together, but I could just imagine my wife in the theater with my 10-year-old, you know? And even us, we're watching the movie and we're like, yeah, here there's a post-credit scene. Let's see what happens. And then you're like, well, great. That's great. Thank you for that. I
Yeah,
just,
it's
oh,
it's not like I waited around to be disappointed by that. Um, all right, so let's talk about the fact that it's a box office failure. It only made, as of today, when we're recording this, we're recording on June 25th, Sunday. It's been out for 2 weekends. It has only made $87 million domestically and a total of 211 million worldwide.
only 87 million?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Which, to me sounds like a lot of money, but
No, no,
when you're
no. But from
talking
a
box
movie
office
standpoint,
terms,
yeah.
that sucks. That
No,
that
because
might have been a good opening weekend,
right.
but I mean, after 2 weekend, like apparently it dropped like 70%,
No, Mario Brothers, didn't that make like 300 or something like that?
like in its first weekend.
It made like three. Well, I can't remember. I gotta look that up
Um,
now. But wow.
so my question is, what caused it to fail? Why aren't people racing to the theaters to see this movie? And we've already talked about it being overhyped, but what is it really that's causing people to ignore this movie? And it's not just this. Last weekend was horrible at the box office because Pixar released Elemental and it didn't do anything either.
I
Like
mean, it
it
was
had
good.
horrible returns too. And that's hard to
SummerSlam.
believe with a Pixar movie. So,
Oh, Super Mario Bros. 146 million opening weekend domestic. Yeah, I guess you gotta wonder.
I mean, is is it a common I feel like it could be a combination of a lot of things. So, you've got the fact that we all know this new DC universe is coming. We know that it's not starting until the new Superman movie comes out next year or whenever that is.
But we know that, but I don't know that a lot of people know that. I think people just, I think your general populace just sees, oh, a Flash movie. You know what I mean? It went.
Well,
This is the best time that it could have come out. This is at the heels. If you're a Flash fan who's been watching CW and you're like you like Flash, this would have been the time for the movie to come out because you could have been like, oh, I'm going to go see the Flash movie, but no one did.
because the series just ended.
Yeah,
You've got Michael Keaton playing a prominent role in the movie,
yeah.
bringing him back after what 30 years since he last donned the cape and cowl. So it's like, all right, so these should be drawing people in, but it's not. Now, another thing you got to contend with is Ezra Miller,
Oh yeah,
and he has had a lot of
bad press.
difficulties behind the scenes.
Yep.
I mean, choke slamming fans out in Iceland. I don't know. Like, there's so much going on where it's like Warner Brothers is just kind of playing that off like it's not a big deal. And yet, I think the court of public opinion is going to prove that it is a big deal. That's you got to do something about that.
Well, I mean, you see this and it's like a Shia LaBeouf. You know what I mean? It's like another person who's young and who's just an actor that can rub people the wrong way. And so I don't know. I think I heard that if this movie did well, then they make a sequel, and I don't think they're going to make a sequel. And
Oh no,
frankly, I
not
think you have to
now.
be an idiot to keep Ezra Miller on any longer.
So the word was going around that if it performed as well as the Batman performed, they were going to do a sequel with Ezra Miller. And it's just like, why do we keep doing this? Because all right, so Ezra Miller, you said rub people the wrong way. He doesn't just rub people the wrong way. He has a criminal record. All right. And in this day and age of canceling people for next to nothing, you're going to keep this actor on as if he's done nothing, as if he hasn't had to go, and be fingerprinted and arrested and go through rehab. Sure, he's attempting to reconcile what he has done in the past, but again, actors have been blacklisted in Hollywood for less than what this guy has done. So I feel like that has played a lot. I don't know. Like I'm not out talking to people. Hey, why didn't you go see the Flash this weekend? I'm there, but I'm sure there's got to be some kind of statistic out there. It's like, oh,
Oh,
I'm not going to support anything that Ezra Miller does.
I think it's DC fatigue, to be honest with you. I don't know that the Ezra Miller piece might just be part of it, but I think it's DC fatigue.
But why? Why is there DC fatigue but not Marvel fatigue?
Well, Marvel
Because Marvel
people
has
are going
put
to
out
hold
so
out.
much more than DC has.
No, I know, but there's been notable ones, and you just hope, right? Longer. I think there's Marvel fatigue already. I think we're getting there. You're starting to see it with more and more with all the movies that are coming out. Like I enjoyed Quantumania, but you know, I think that's part of Marvel fatigue. So and you've talked before about superhero fatigue in general. It could be the genre's overdone. This situation though, DC has really not put out very good movies.
Oh
And
no, no.
and so I think DC fatigue is more justified than Marvel fatigue at this point.
Well, the only disappointment for me is, moving forward is if superhero fatigue becomes a real thing and they decide to stop making superhero movies for a while. Um, because DC never really got its chance to do what it should be capable of.
Well, maybe you just need some time. I mean, we've been back to back with movies and stuff since Iron Man, and maybe, a little break, gives some time. You don't
I
need
don't
to
want to
have
break. I'm
those.
getting too old to wait. All right.
I mean, the break
Time fly.
you might not survive this, Aaron. You may not survive this break.
I don't think I will. I think I'll die before I see a good Superman movie again.
And thinking about Blue Beetle, I mean, Blue Beetle, the only reason I'm excited to see Blue Beetle, and again, the only reason I'm excited about to see Blue Beetle is because Miguel from Cobra Kai is in it.
Yeah.
No, that's the only reason my kids will want to see it, or my wife will want to see it. I think that's all I thank you, Cobra Kai, because otherwise, who would go see Blue Beetle? Who's heard of Blue Beetle? I mean, I know Blue Beetle. I know you've heard of Blue Beetle. The only thing I remember about Blue Beetle was him getting you know, Doomsday taking the piece of wood, throwing it through the Beetlemobile,
Oh yeah.
and the poor guy goes down, and he is a wreck. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I remember about Blue Beetle from the comics.
But that's not the same Blue Beetle that we're getting in the movie, right?
No, I don't know.
Oh, you didn't realize that?
No,
There have
I
been
just
three. There have been three Blue Beetles in throughout history. There
keep trying.
was there was one. I can't remember the original Blue Beetle. Second Blue Beetle was Ted Kord. That's the one you're talking about, who was part of the Justice League when Doomsday tore him apart. And then now you've got Jaime Reyes. who is the third Blue Beetle, and this is the Blue Beetle who has the alien scarab attached to him. That I don't know. I don't know how far they're going to get into this in the movie. I don't know anything about the movie yet, about the plot anyway. But I know in the comics and in the Young Justice TV series, the Scarab is meant to be like an advanced soldier or a scout to prepare Earth for invasion
Oh, there you go.
by the Reach.
Oh, well, let's
It's
see.
very doom and gloom.
That might just bring me back to the moot. Nope.
Now I'm really excited about Blue Beetle because
Oh, you are?
because oh shoot, I just I was gonna make a joke and now I can't remember the name of the guy who's in it. George Lopez, that's it. I'm excited because George Lopez is in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. He plays the dad.
Dad or uncle, I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah. I like
Yeah,
that.
he's the one that makes a joke about Batman being a fascist.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a fascist. Um, yeah. We'll see what happens. Well, did you have any trivia for
You know
our?
I do.
Let's hear it.
All right. Henry Allen is played by Ron Livingston in this film. Ron Livingston, of course, of Office Space fame. Who played the character in Justice League?
Billy Crudup.
That is correct. All right. Number 2, this movie took some inspiration from the comic book storyline Flashpoint, which we've already discussed. In that story, who wore Batman's cape and cowl?
Tim Drake.
Nope. Thomas Wayne.
Oh, Thomas Wayne. I knew that. We've said that another time.
Yep.
Oh, right.
In
And
that
then
reality,
Catwoman was his mom.
no, Joker was his mom.
Oh, Joker, right.
Yeah. Yeah, in that reality, Bruce Wayne was killed in that alley. Thomas became Batman, and Martha lost her mind and became that reality's Joker.
Yeah, it would have been weird if his mom was Catwoman. That's really, yeah.
All right, this one's going to be tough. In the comics, who originally created the Flash? You can give me either the writer or the artist. I'll say the writer I knew. I had to look up the artist. I wasn't sure.
$20 says I saw this person at the Richmond Convention Center because I saw these Flash comics. I don't know. Who you got?
Gardner Fox was the writer, and Harry Lampert was the artist.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Name one of the actors who has played Barry Allen on television.
John Wesley Shipp.
That was the original 1980s
I loved that show when I was
Flash,
in
or
the 80s.
1990 Flash.
Wasn't that a fun show? I mean,
was
it was
good.
hokey now, but
But also the most recent Flash was Grant Gustin.
yeah, Grant Gustin. Yeah.
And Barry Allen's love interest received very little screen time in this film. What was her name?
Iris West.
Iris West, indeed.
I like the actress though. I thought she did a good job.
Yeah,
She might have been
again,
one of the better actresses, actors of the show. I mean,
that was another one of those situations where she didn't have a whole lot to do, and but what little she did, she had good presence on screen, and
yeah,
it's a shame that she did not have more to do because in the comics, I mean, certainly in the TV show, but in the comics as well, Iris West is definitely a partner for Barry, and not just some damsel in distress that shows up
pretty cool dynamic
every once in a while.
I really like the Iris West from the CW show. I like their dynamic together.
Yeah, I thought they did.
I mean, it had ups and downs, right? There were some times that it was stupid, but
I haven't watched that show since Crisis.
I still have 2 seasons left. So,
all right. Any other Flash thoughts, Flash facts, if you will, before we
let me consult my Flash cards.
Flash cards.
No, I've got nothing. No, hey, you know what? it's cool because I kind of came into this going, man, I really enjoyed the movie, but I wasn't thinking in depth about it. But every point that you made was right, and
Of course it was. Do you know who
you
you're
know,
talking to?
there there's that hubris we love.
He's not, really that conceited. All right. Well, next week we will be talking about a new Indiana Jones movie. Indiana
Dial of
Jones and the Dial of
Destiny.
Destiny. So all right. Yeah, that's gonna be good. Are you gonna be able to talk about that next week, or do we need
I
to?
will.
Okay,
I will.
good. Good. All right. Hey folks, if you have enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps us out on the algorithm. I know people say that all the time, but it's actually true, the way YouTube does things. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or on Apple iPod stuff, give us a comment or something. Let us know what you're thinking, and we would love to share your comments right here on the show. And tell your friends about it, because we'd love to have more listeners.
Yeah, quick shout out to two new listeners, Greg and Scott. Thank you for listening and your comments to us. Thank you.
Greg and Scott. Did I miss this? Did you meet Greg and Scott?
I did.
Well, hey, Greg and Scott, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode about The Flash, even if you didn't enjoy the Flash movie itself.
Or if you really did. Either
Even
way.
but if you enjoyed the Flash movie, that's great too.
Yeah.
All right. That's gonna wrap it up for us this week. Come back next time and we will be going classic Indiana Jones. All right. Have a great whatever it is wherever you are.
Bye, everybody.